Go ahead.
Hello everybody, my name is Vicki Werner and I want to welcome you into my home today. Thank you so much for joining me as I venture into this new aspect of my life. I'm very excited to share the message that I'm going to share today. And it's not necessarily an easy message to talk about, but it's something that affects every one of us. So the topic that I'm going to talk about today is recovery from rejection. And rejection is one of emotionally, it's one of the most painful experiences that each one of us have ever had. And I know that each one of us have had moments of rejection. I personally had one recently that was very painful for me. And in this experience, I was giving a tremendous amount of my energy to an organization that I really valued, and I loved this organization a great deal. And when it was time for the next level of promotion, I was passed over and was not chosen again. It was very painful for me, and rejection shows up in a visceral experience. And if any of you can remember at a time when you had a moment of rejection, some of the experiences that you will have is that sinking feeling, that sinking energy where your energy just drops and you just wonder what happened. And it can show up as a flushing all over your body or a shock. It literally shows up as a shock into your system, and you try to analyze what just took place. And it can drop you into a space of deep despair and depression, in fact, because it's quite a painful experience. As this emotion comes through your body, it flushes through our body, and it is often characterized as a direct hit. So when I wasn't chosen for that experience, it took me some time to try to figure out what was going on in my life and why that experience hit me so hard. Because it was such a painful experience, I really needed to take stock in my own life. So one of the things that I realized in the research that I did, and what I did is I chose to research it. I chose to look deeper as to why I was going through that experience. And I found some interesting things about rejection. But I want to share a few things about emotional exchange of energy. So that if you can follow me along a little bit. When, say this was me, and this was, I will show as an individual, but it can show up as an individual, it could show up as a coworker, a friend. It could show up as an organization, or even a religious organization or a place of employment. It can show up in many different ways. But when somebody is having an energy exchange with you, and they are coming to you with an energy exchange where they are, are you able to see that? And when the energy that they're coming at, when I had an opportunity for advancement, this was my energy putting out. And when I'm giving energy, when you give energy, it can show up in many ways. It can show up in thoughts, deeds, actions, emotions, activity. Each one of these things are ways that we give our energy. And so when I was giving my energy forward, I was part of the human race. In the human race, we expect an exchange back. And when that doesn't happen, that's when we have rejection. We feel that the energy that should be coming back is something that I want. I wanted either advancement, or I wanted attention, or it could show up in many different ways. But in this energy cycle, as the human condition, we give energy and expect energy back, like I said. And when that doesn't happen in the way that we need, we feel these emotions of rejection. So one of the things that I realized was I was really looking for approval, and I was looking for connection and advancement. And I was looking for this because it was something that I identified myself with. I identified myself with this role, and it was a really powerful one. But because that rejection was so painful for me, some of the emotions that hit me and hit other people our root, our visceral experience is we tend to go into forms of jealousy, envy, and blame. And when we have any of those emotions, is we have blame, because I could blame this individual for not seeing my value, or I could blame somebody for sabotaging me, or I could blame that. But if I go into blame, in order for me to make myself right, I had to wait for them to change, because as long as I'm in that energy of waiting for me to be okay, and if I was still in blame, then I had to make sure that somebody else changed. Somebody else has to change outside of yourself for you to make peace with that. And when you're in jealousy or envy, many of you are familiar with an energy scale. And I'll share this a little bit with the energy scale. When you are in these lower vibration energies of blame, jealousy, and envy, it drops your energy. And when you're in that lower vibration, you are sending out signals from yourself. You're sending out signals of this lower vibration. And it causes you to repeat the pattern that you had already started of blame, envy, and jealousy. These low vibration frequencies or vibrations are a frequency that we put out, and other people can pick these up. And so when we are trying to get through this experience, it becomes more and more painful because we continue a cycle with that. So a few of the things that I wanted to learn more about this experience is I did some research about these researchers, they did MRIs on individuals who just experienced rejection. And it was very painful for them to watch these people, because it was very painful. It could be in a relationship that they had for a great deal of time. So they found that when they did these MRIs on these individuals, there was 3 areas of the brain that were highly activated during that experience. And when they had the feelings of rejection, one of the things that was most activated, that I found most interesting, is it had the same response in the brain as when you are in unconditional love. And so when your brain is responding in romantic love, you have this individual on, so as this experience, if you can recall a time when you felt rejection, your brain is stimulated in the exact same space of intense romantic love. And at the same time, your brain is wanting to attract this energy. You're wanting approval. You're needing to have something fulfilled. Simultaneously, you're trying to run away because it's so painful. And that causes the discourse within our bodies. And you can't get that running thoughts out of your mind over and over and over. And when you have this continued concentration on another individual, and your thoughts are going into this energy, it's the response that you'll see in the brain. A second area that shows up is the area of gains and losses. Whether you're really willing to, what are you willing to take to make gains in your life? What risk are you willing to take? And it's also the area of your brain where you are calculating what went wrong. And I know that was the case for me. I calculated, I analyzed, I played it over and over in my head. What went wrong? What did I do different? What got picked up? What did they know that I didn't know? What did they see that I didn't see? You're calculating risks. And that's one of the areas that gets picked up. And the final area is a deep attachment to another. In this human condition, we thrive on connections. We thrive on growth. We're here for the experience of growth and advancement. And I found that when you have these deep attachments, the closer you feel, or the greater attachment that you have to either the individual or the organization, the rejection wound is deeper. And I felt that was the case for me. And so when somebody is in a relationship and when person A says I care for this person, and person B said, oh, it's okay, we had a good time, went out a couple of times, and they weren't really that attached, they can disengage quite soon if there wasn't a lot of attached energy. But if they were in a relationship for a significant amount of time, or this individual gave a tremendous amount of their energy, then it pulled them So how to heal for rejection. For me, I had to cry. I had to cry for a couple of days. I needed to process. And although I've learned some incredible techniques over the last 2 years that have been some very powerful techniques and opportunities for me, I couldn't escape the human condition of just sorrow, just being in that space and allowing the process to go through with me. And a few of the things that I did is I did some journaling so that the thoughts that were inside of my head I could take out and have more control over what the thoughts were that were in my head. I realized that when I did the journaling that what was really taking place for me is it wasn't necessarily this encounter that caused the great deal of pain. But what it was is this encounter triggered an emotional response of a memory of another pain that wasn't healed. And when you can get to a point of looking back on a point of rejection and see that it's not necessarily just the singular experience that causes us the great deal of pain, but rather the unhealed emotion that's trying to come up. And I was able to pinpoint that quite soon of a time that actually took place approximately 22 years ago, where there was a moment of rejection and with somebody that I had really worked hard to cultivate a relationship, and that memory kept coming up. And when you're in a space where you're processing a rejection, if a memory of another experience keeps coming up, it's speaking to you and saying it's time to heal this, it's time to bring this to the surface and to heal it. So one of the ways that you can do that is to stop the negative self-talk and just stop it in its tracks. It's important that you catch it when you are having these negative thoughts and writing them down, journaling about them, and creating more of a positive environment for yourself. Feel strength in releasing the pent-up energy. There was a lot of pent-up energy. And nature is a beautiful way to release energy. Nature, back to this vibration scale, nature is a frequency of 528 hertz. And that is also the frequency of unconditional love. And so when we're hurting and we need to recalibrate, then walking out in nature is a really beautiful opportunity. And we're very blessed in the environment that we live here so that we can recalibrate very easily. And that's helpful for me. Another thing that helped me was to adjust my perception. And it's not always easy to do that right away. But when you get to a point of saying, what was this trying to teach me? When the world really does conspire on my behalf, when there really is messages in even the painful experiences, I realized what they were doing was giving me a gift, that I was able to move forward in a better way and in a more alignment with my path. And sometimes it takes some time to get to a space of peace with that, but they gave me a correction of my destiny. And I know that what I was doing is I was personally out of balance with the amount of time that I was spending with them, and which caused me to remove my responsibilities of what I really needed to take care of, and I focused on an organization that it was time for me to move on. So one other thing is connecting with friends and loved ones. And if you have a safe place to land, if you have a safe place to let your heart be free and say, I'm really feeling wounded and I'm hurting. And this isn't a place where you advertise on Facebook. It's not a place where you advertise in a group of people, because you have no control what you share. You have no control how it's going to be responded. And if you're in a vulnerable space and you're sharing that you're feeling pain and you're hurting, if you're doing it with a group of people, there's going to be people who are uncomfortable with that. And there's going to be people who have no skills in handling that. And so now it's collateral damage. Now you have to help fix this person when you're still in a space when you're hurting. And it can snowball into more pain. But if you have chosen 2 or 3 people that you just say, hey, I need some feedback here. I need to have a deeper understanding, and I need your love as you hold my heart and allow me to process. And it's the people who say, I don't have a way to fix this for you, but I will sit with you, I will hold you, I will give feedback in the way. So a couple of those nurturing relationships are very, very important. And my final experience with that is, like I said, about going back into my real destiny. Rejection is actually correction. Rejection is a correction as to recalibrating what energy you're putting out, recalibrating where you're supposed to be, and allowing yourself to be in a better process. And there's much learning experience. And so when I wanted this cycle, what I wanted was advancement and recognition. And although I didn't receive that, there was many things that I did receive. And so when I changed my point of view and corrected my perception in an understanding that what I did receive was valuable feedback for the energy that I was putting out, it was freedom to move forward in a way that I wouldn't have done on my own. And it really helped me understand who was really close to me, because the few people that I reached out to, the ones that responded appropriately, they advanced in the relationship where I felt like this is more of a safe experience. So these are just a few of the things that I wanted to share a little bit about the recovery from rejection. And I was just wondering, does anybody have any questions at this point? Good. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate your time.